And welcome everyone to this week's edition of First and 10 with Keith Harrington. I'm your host, Keith Harrington on NYVT Media Sports. And we are live today on location at Poultney High School. And we had hoped to be out on the football field taping some of the practice and recording the show with the practice in the background. But unfortunately, Mother Nature decided not to cooperate with us. So the team is out on the field practicing with their coaching staff, but we are in here in the cozy confines of the Dave Catman Gym and the Devil's Den, as they call it. And we are excited because we're going to be doing our live stream of high school football on Saturday from outside on Dean Houghton Field. And it is a big deal for this sports announcer. I'll tell you that right now, because I probably did, I don't know how many games, hundreds would be pretty accurate of games on radio out on this football field and when I was cutting my teeth in the broadcasting business, and then taught here in Poultney for 30 plus years. So I'll always bleed blue and gold. This place is always going to have a place in my heart, no doubt about it. So to be, I'm so grateful, so thankful for 40 years in broadcasting and 30 years in teaching to have been a part of this community, and for the people of the town, the taxpayers and the fans and and just everybody, the businesses that supported us with sponsorship, to have a chance to come back here and do a game this weekend. We're actually going to be doing 3 games here this year. Every game left, I think, on the home schedule for the Blue Devils this year. So to be able to do that is just I'm so thankful, so grateful for everything Poultney has given me, and to come back here and do games here and do this show today. I just can't say enough about how excited I am and how I'm looking forward to the show and also the football game this weekend. And we're going to have head coach Andrew Breting and new quarterback, former wide receiver, new quarterback Eric Kendall coming up with us a little bit later on in the show. First, let's look at what happened last week in local high school football. Of course, we were over at Sam Eppolito Field in Granville as Granville Whitehall took on Broad Alban Perth. And Granville Whitehall got off to a slow start in that game, but they ended up kicking it in gear in the second quarter. Big touchdown run from Brandon Beaver gave them the spark they needed, and they went on to defeat the Patriots of Broad Alban Perth 44-15 at Sam Eppolito Field. And as I said, that game was seen right here on NYVT Media Sports. And it was Brandon Beaver, 2 touchdown runs for GW. He finished with 84 yards on the ground. CJ Monty ran for ran for a touchdown, caught a scoring pass, rushed for 124 yards on 19 touches for GW. Finn McLaughlin was actually our Lake Champlain Coal Company player of the game. Finn is a sophomore quarterback, got his first varsity start due to an injury to Chris Roselle, their senior starting quarterback. And he threw 2 touchdown passes in the game, a couple of conversion passes, and you wouldn't know he was a sophomore making his first varsity start. He was very cool, collected, under control, and played an outstanding game. And as I said, Finn earned our Lake Champlain Coal Player of the Game award. And Granville Whitehall is now 2-1 on the season with a big game coming up Friday night against the defending Class C state champion Black Horses of Schuylerville over at um, Whitehall Central School. And we'll be over there to bring you all that action live here on NYVT Media Sports at Ambrose Gilligan Field. Also, last weekend, a big game in Class D. Greenwich beat Cambridge Salem in a showdown of unbeatens, 21-7. It was Will Weber rushing for 133 yards on 24 carries for the Witches. Quarterback Ryan Ingber had 74 yards and a score on 19 rushes. And Ingber also threw a 26-yard touchdown pass to Wyatt Jameson. And for Cambridge Salem, it was Stephen Yakubek. He was 11 for 19 for 119 yards passing. Abe Cushing had an 11-yard touchdown run for Cambridge Salem, as Greenwich, though, got the win. So the Witches remain unbeaten. They're 3-0. Cambridge Salem falls to 2-1. But you just got the feeling they're going to see each other somewhere again down the road in Section 2 Class D play, no doubt about it. Warrensburg Lake George cruise past Rensselaer 50-18. The score in that one, Jace Huber rushed for 142 yards, 3 touchdowns on 13 carries for the Wolverines. And that was a big game for him. Congratulations to Coach John Irian, as Coach John Irian picks up another win as the coach at Warrensburg Lake George, taking over this year after being at Queensbury and being at Granville and being around a lot of places. for high school football. So he has really got things going on with that program. They're 2-0. They're going to have to get by Greenwich and Cambridge Salem. But, definitely a good start for the Wolverines. We're going to take a break right now. We'll come right back with more First and 10 here on NYVT Media Sports. I'm Keith Harrington. And welcome back to First and 10 on NYVT Media Sports. I'm your host, Keith Harrington, and we are live on location this week at Poultney High School. And unfortunately, Mother Nature did not allow us to be out on the field for filming, so we are in the gymnasium here as the Blue Devils get ready to have practice, get ready for their game this weekend against the Milton Yellow Jackets. And joining me right now is Poultney High School head coach Andrew Breting, and thanks for taking the time to join me.
Thank you for having me.
We have a lot of connections. I know we were just talking about Steve Lodka, a lot of people that we know that we both are acquaintances of.
Absolutely.
So glad to sit down and talk with you here today. So you guys are off to an 0-3 start. But other than that, other than the obvious, where do you think your team is at this point?
I thought last week we took a step in the right direction offensively. We put some 21 points on the board. We added a couple of new things in last week, changed the quarterback position, put Kendall at quarterback, gives us a little option to run the ball a little bit more on the quarterback position, opens up our offense. So I thought last week we saw that good in the second half, so we hope to build on that this week.
So you've got Milton coming in here. They're also looking for their first win of the season. So, something's got to give here this Saturday, unless it's a tie, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, Milton, they're well-coached program. I actually, when I coached over at Castleton, coached the D-line over at Castle University, I coached Rock, their head coach there. So, we have a little connection that way. Their offense, can be explosive. You know what I mean? It's, traditional, seems like a pro-style offense. Defensively, they're good defensively. They're a good team despite their record.
Now, it just seems odd. I know you've had problems with numbers. You're right around 20 kids right now. Poultney football program is such a long-standing tradition.
Absolutely.
It's hard to believe having 20, but it's not a Poultney thing. I was saying last week with Granville and Whitehall, it's not a Granville and Whitehall thing. It's like a societal thing. Why are kids just not playing football and other sports?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's definitely a Vermont thing in general. New York, I don't really know a lot about New York, but, we played Woodstock 2 weeks ago, and usually every time we play Woodstock, you look at their sideline, they got 40 plus kids. I think Woodstock, when we played them, had 28 on their sideline. So if a program is successful and as big as Woodstock is struggling to get numbers, it trickles down, and you can just, tell with us, you know what I mean? We're struggling to have 20 guys on the team, and I don't know if it's something where we need to look at co-oping or we need to look at 8-man football in Vermont, but I think it's something that definitely needs to be explored this offseason.
Well, you mentioned New York. The one thing I can tell you is it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
You got a lot of schools that were up in A, they're double A, they're now down in A that are down in B, and
Absolutely.
B, they're down in C. And there's actually more merged programs out there. Granville Whitehall is not the exception. They're the kind of the rule. I mean, there's all across the board, not just in football, but in sports in general, merged programs. So, and then Corinth Hadley Luzerne, which is a merged program, just went to 8-man.
Yeah.
So that might be something that might be a viable option here soon.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope, Vermont hasn't done 8-man football. I really hope they look into doing 8-man football. I know they've had it in the past, and it kind of got rid of it once teams were able to build the numbers back up. But I think it's something that, if you do 8-man football, it can build more programs, and that's what Vermont needs, more schools playing football.
Right. It boggles my mind, to be honest, and it probably does yours too. When I was a kid, sports is what we did.
Absolutely.
We could not wait. I was the bookkeeper or the ball boy or the water boy or whatever, all the way up through, just because I wanted to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
And I don't understand where that decline has come, but
yeah, I think I don't think we're the only ones having this conversation. You know what I mean? I think it's just where sports aren't as popular as they used to be.
Yeah.
And, what factors are leading into that, that's somebody needs to dive into it. We're certainly not going to be able to dive into it, but I think it's something that definitely needs to be looked at.
So you got, as we talked about, Milton coming in here this week. Is it homecoming this week?
It's homecoming,
chili cook-off. That's always a really big deal, right? So it's a big game for people to come out to and support the Blue Devils.
Absolutely. Something cool tradition. The chili cook-off, they shut down Main Street of Poultney. Everybody goes down, eats a bunch of chili, then walks up to the game at 1 o'clock. So we know the crowd's going to be big. We know, homecoming weekend just adds to it. So there's going to be a lot going on, and, we hope to get the win in front of the crowd.
So what are you looking for out of your team this week to be be able to get that win.
Yeah, I've challenged them this week. I thought we've had really two good practices, Tuesday and Wednesday. Tackling has been an issue for us, and it's something that it's been struggle for me. Because how much do you want to tackle during practice? Because our numbers are so low. So this week I really challenged them to let's get back to the techniques. Let's get back to tackling. Let's get back to being a hard-nosed football team. And I think they answered that in the past 2 days at practice. Offensively, obviously, we're week 2 of our kind of new look offense. I want to see us build off of last week and score 21, if not more.
All right, excellent. I'll tell you, it's a big deal for me to be doing the game on Saturday, the play-by-play, because, having taught at Poultney for over 30 years and broadcasted games here for like 40, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 60 years old. I think I started when I was literally 20 years old on radio doing
Yeah,
games here in Poultney. So it's a big deal for me to get back, and I hope we can come here a bunch of times
absolutely,
and help get this program. Poultney's always going to have a place in my heart, no doubt about it. So I hope we can get the program back up and going in
absolutely.
good shape.
Yeah, and doing stuff like this helps our program
All
build. So
right. Well, we're glad to be here. Glad to be a
awesome.
part of it. Andrew Breting, everybody, head football coach for the Poultney Blue Devils. And coming up next, we have Poultney football player Eric Kendall. This is First and 10 with Keith Harrington on NYVT Media Sports. And welcome back to this week's edition of First and 10. I'm your host, Keith Harrington, here on NYVT Media Sports. And we're at Poultney High School today, where we hope to be out on the football field, but Mother Nature put a stop to that. So we're inside in the gym. And thanks to everybody here at Poultney for accommodating us. And joining me right now is Poultney football player Eric Kendall. And glad to have you along with us today.
Thank you, of course.
So are you a senior on this year's team?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
sir.
senior year off to an 0-3 start, but as Coach was saying, it looks like you turned it around a little bit last week against Mill River.
Yeah, we started off pretty rough, but like offensively, we've had some positive things, putting points on the board. Uh, a lot of penalties, uh, they hurt us a lot. Like we like to shoot ourselves in the foot. Like we'll make a good play and we just can't capitalize on it, which really sucks. But we moved the ball pretty well. We got to improve in the run game a little bit, but yeah.
Well, yeah, the schedule makers didn't really do you any big favors either, having to go to Spalding and
Yeah.
then having to play Woodstock, right?
Yeah.
So you guys kind of had to face a schedule that a lot of people probably would have lost a
Yeah.
couple of games, right?
Yeah, it was rough, but we just got to improve every week, keep getting better.
So you got Milton coming in this week for a home game. They're 0-3, so they're also looking for their first win. They gave Spalding a close game.
Yeah.
So, what are you expecting this weekend?
I feel pretty good. We've moved some things around. I'm switching from receiver to cornerback or quarterback, so the offense is going to look a little bit different. Get me a couple more chances to run the ball. Still would like to throw the ball a lot. Move the ball well. Colchester threw the ball on them a lot, so I feel pretty good. As long as we stay solid defensively, I think it'll be a good game.
So how big of an adjustment has that been, moving from receiver to quarterback, having to call the plays in the huddle and things like that? A different perspective of the way
Yeah.
the plays operate.
It's definitely a big change, but I wouldn't say it's been too challenging. I think I've adapted pretty well. I like the way things look, and we're definitely making progress.
So you guys' numbers are down. You're hovering around 20 players
Yeah.
right now, and Poultney has such a long, proud tradition. And as I was just saying with Coach, it's not a Poultney problem. It's
Yeah.
a society problem. It's happening Vermont, New York, wherever you
Mhm.
go. What would you say to young kids out there about coming out and playing football for Poultney High School?
I think it's important to just try it before you just completely throw away the idea of not playing a sport. Like for me, it would I couldn't imagine not playing a sport. Like it's like all I've ever wanted to do throughout high school. So I think at least giving it a try, and like if you don't like it after a while, then it makes sense to give it up. But at least try it out and see how it is.
Yeah, well, I agree with you 100%. I mean, it just boggles my mind that teams are having such
Yeah.
a hard time getting kids to play not only football, but any sport.
Yeah.
So many teams are merged. So many teams don't have junior varsity teams
Yeah.
or junior high teams or whatever the case may be. It's just, that's all we knew when I was growing up was
Mhm.
sports. We couldn't wait.
Yeah.
It's all we talked about.
Yeah.
So hopefully somewhere along the line it makes a turn here, not only for
Mhm.
Poultney, but for high school sports
Yeah.
everywhere. Well, Eric, thanks for joining us here this
Of
afternoon.
course.
Glad to have you along, and we'll be here doing the game live on Saturday from Dean Houghton Field. Kickoff is at 1 o'clock. You can catch the game on our NYVT Media YouTube page. We'll also have links on Border Country Sports and I think the Granville Sentinel page as well. So make sure if you can't make it to the game, you dial us in. If you make it, go back and watch our replay afterwards because it's there for pretty much ever. So go to our YouTube page after, and the players can see what we said about you, afterwards. So we're gonna come back after this with a look at the upcoming schedule for this week for local high school football for our area, and we'll do that in just a bit. This is First and 10 with Keith Harrington on NYVT Media Sports. And welcome back to First and 10. I'm your host, Keith Harrington, here on NYVT Media Sports. Some other games from last week, Ravenna, Queens, Selkirk. We were down there a couple of weeks ago watching them knock off Averill Park. They came away with a 55-7 win over Scotia Glenville, so they're 3-0 on the season. Cobleskill, another win for Cobleskill. They won a barn burner right down to the wire. They get a 1-point victory over Hoosick Falls Tamarack. So Cobleskill 3-0 on the season. So our local teams that we cover here at NYVT Media Sports really off to great starts, and we can't wait to see more of them down the road. Coming up on this week's schedule, Friday night will be at Ambrose Gilligan Field in Whitehall, as I mentioned. The defending Class C state champion Schuylerville Black Horses come to town to take on Granville Whitehall. The Black Horses are 3-0. Granville Whitehall 2-1. The Black Horses are led by running backs Ernie DaCosta and Levi Michaud. Ben Van Vetten takes over for Ollie Bolduck as the quarterback this year. Bolduck, of course, graduating from that state championship team. But they have 9 starters back on both sides of the ball. And so they're an impressive team. They're going to be a dangerous, dangerous opponent for GW this week. Granville's led by C.J. Monty and fullback Brandon Beaver. Chris Roselle started the first 2 games at quarterback. He was injured last week. Finn McLaughlin took over and led them to that victory over Broadalbin Perth. McLaughlin, a sophomore. Also, Monty and Beaver with defense, they've been strong as well. But Patrick Egan, A.J. Landon, Mason Sagana, Sam Huntington have all been standouts on the defense for GW. Also on Saturday, as we mentioned, we'll be right here in Poultney. The Blue Devils hosting Milton at Dean Houghton Field. Both teams 0-3, seeking their first win of the season. Running back, now quarterback, formerly wide receiver, Eric Kendall, is a player to watch for the Blue Devils. Talon Chalmers, Ethan Anderson, also guys to watch out for Poultney. Elsewhere on the schedule on Friday, Greenwich is at Warrensburg Lake George. That's a big game. A couple of unbeaten teams there. Johnstown's at Cobleskill Richmondville. Lansingburg is at Ravenna Queens Selkirk. It is Kennedyehary Fort Plain at Rensselaer Loudonville Christian. Brattleboro is at Fairhaven over at La Placa Field. And an 8-man football, Morrisville Eaton is at Corinth Hadley Luzerne. On Saturday, besides the game we're doing right here in Poultney, Cambridge Salem is at Hudson Falls, and Stillwater Spa Catholic as at Voorheesville. And that wraps it up for the schedule for this coming weekend. And as I said, we will be right here at Dean Houghton Field in Poultney as the Poultney Blue Devils take on the Milton Yellow Jackets. It is chili cook-off weekend. It is homecoming weekend. And it's a couple of teams looking for their first win. We can promise you it's going to be a good one. And we'll be on the air. Kickoff is at 1 p.m. You can catch that game on the NYVT Media YouTube channel, on Border Country Sports, or on the Granville Sentinel Times Facebook page. And that's going to wrap it up here. Thanks to everybody here at Poultney High School for being gracious hosts for us this week. Until next week, this has been First and 10 with Keith Harrington on NYVT Media Sports.